You're
Okay.
looking sharp, man. Looking sharp.
I mean, we're the bearded ones today.
Yeah, I've got a good one going, man. Mine's pretty thick right now.
Yeah, I just had mine trimmed. I got a haircut over the weekend, Yeah, bro. So I took my son and we both went together to get a haircut. And, I said, so I can look half presentable to the world. So we're live, man. We're live on Facebook. We're live. We're going to be live today somewhere on YouTube and all around the world. So, dude, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So you got Pest Daily going on. You've got a bunch of stuff. I mean, for the people that don't know who the heck you are, tell us the audience about you, man.
Yeah. So I appreciate you having me on. So, you and I have known each other for a little while now, and I've kind of stayed. I've kind of stayed out of the limelight for a long time, and my intent is to still do that. But kind of long story short is I was in corporate sales back in the early 2000s. For the people that know me, it's really tough for me to talk about myself. So I'm going to do the best I can for all of us. But I was in corporate sales, was real successful, and I say that as humbly as possible. But a good friend of mine decided, I was working at Cintas, and he said, "Hey man, let's go do something different." And he's like, "You should really go start your own company." And so we spent a lot of time doing research and some different stuff. And so we did. We ended up looking at like 30 different businesses, 30 different types of companies. We got into the pest control business back in 2008. And the interesting thing was for us, and this is something that we're starting to hear a lot about in the industry, is we didn't have the experience, right? So we were really fortunate to we had a third partner who was an awesome guy who had some experience, and he kind of helped us through the way. But all we did was bring some corporate ideas into pest control. Well, you fast forward 4 years, the company became a really big powerhouse here in Florida. We service most of the major markets. The company's called Envirotech. And, I was fortunate enough to sell the company, which was really neat. And the company was great, man. And it still operates today. One of my former partners he bought it from us and with some good backing. And, it was great, man. I was 31 years old, had a really good size exit, and ended up doing some neat stuff. But we built all the sales infrastructure, marketing infrastructure, all the processes related to routes, and all these things. And the thing I think was really a big benefit, Franklin, was, and you and I have talked about this before, is the fact is because we didn't know anything, we had to kind of create it all. And so by creating it, we get to go through that whole experience. So anyway, we left. So kind of a quick backstory is we did that. I had a 5-year non-compete. And so when I left the pest control business, I ended up going into technology. I ended up becoming the CEO of a really, really large healthcare consulting firm that was in the tech space, did some neat stuff there, scaled up some marketing agencies, then moved from there into artificial intelligence, which was like a massive failure. It was a company that had hundreds of millions of dollars in financing, but we couldn't get our products built. So we built sales infrastructure there, and we sold a lot, but we never could get anything done. It was a huge failure. And then I was fortunate to get recruited, and I went into the real estate space. And so in the real estate space, it was real estate technology. I became the chief revenue officer for Happy Grasshopper, which obviously scaled up and is a very large company today. And then I got a chance to exit there, which was great. And then we moved into ID Plans, which I was the chief revenue officer up until I guess about 4 months ago. And they service the retail sector, another great company. And the retail sector got hit with COVID.
Right.
But to kind of rewind to answer your other questions related to kind of pest control and some of the cool stuff is when my non-compete was done back in 2017 I decided to enter back in the industry because I really missed it, but I did it kind of more of in a passive way where we built Pest Leads, Florida Pest Leads, which we sold out that entire product in a matter of about 6 months. It's a website leasing company. It still runs today. We don't publish it. We don't market it. It just runs today. For some of our clients, it's really successful. For others, it's kind of a more of a naming play for them, which is great. So we did that, and then I started building, I did kind of on the side. I started doing coaching and consulting for pest control companies,
right?
Which I think you're aware of. And so in 2017, we started that. Between now and then, I've had 27 clients. Out of those 27, 7 have sold their companies, and 20 of them are still my customers today, dealing with growth and all these different components. And so, kind of leading in. I know we'll dive way deep into this, but kind of leading into it is that Pest Daily was the concept of Pest Daily was that and I'm not going to pitch it, but we'll talk about it. But
that's fine. We can pitch it.
Yeah, of Well, it's against my nature to pitch, so I'll do the best I can for you, man.
It's cool, man.
What I decided to do was I had this deep passion from the time I started my pest control company back in 2008. I kept thinking about like what allowed us to get so successful so fast, right? And in addition to just sales, but how did we reduce our client? How did we reduce churn? How did we keep our finance in order? How did we run an operation? And then how did we like empower our technicians, right? And so all these ideas that we kind of built and did different things over the years as I was working in technology and doing the same thing in the technology space,
right.
Started bringing these to our consulting and coaching customers. And so I said, well, over my mind, I go, well, how do I scale this thing and get some of this knowledge to people across the industry in a way that they can be hearing things they've never maybe heard before in a really simple platform, right?
Right.
So that invented Pest Daily. So then Pest Daily, which you're aware of, we've spent 1,600 hours developing it. We've got production teams. We've built, I think, 125 or 135 lessons so far. And then we pushed it live last week. And so far the feedback's been good, and then we're going to continue to improve the product. We're going to do some really cool stuff with it. But the entire purpose is to create this holistic environment for anyone who wants to learn in the pest control industry to be able to come and learn, and whether the companies compete with us from a contributor standpoint or if they agree with the teachings that we have, that's totally fine. We want to give the people that platform to teach from.
Right.
And fortunately, we have the technology to do it, and we have the resources to do it. And that's kind of what we're going with it, man. So
yeah, no, I'm super excited about it because I am. Yeah. And people are like, Frank's either an idiot or he's losing it. Here is the thing. We've been talking. I've been watching what you're doing, and I've known about you from other guys who've bought your consulting service, and they told me they had a great experience with you on you helping them, which is some of the things we're going to get into today, because a lot of them are the same challenges. But it's one of those things where when I started this podcast, and if you've listened to my original podcast, I originally did this because I saw so many people out there that, when I started, me and Pest, it was Author Podcast.
Yep.
We were 30 days apart. We were the original two podcasts. We started 30 days apart. None of us knew what we were doing. And they were 30 days ahead of me. And when I got on, it's like, all of a sudden everybody else started doing podcasts, and, 6 have come on and they left, and we've stayed there. And a couple of other guys who are in the consulting space have their podcasts. So right now, the competition in the podcast arena for pest control is really like, there's nothing really going on there. But I originally started this because I saw so many technicians and so many people suffering because nobody was training, nobody was helping. And to me, it's more of a journey and in my history and in my future of my growing my business, of what I'm going through to help other people through this process. And to me, it's like I've had, the other institute that came on, I forgot, Training Institute. They have a great, they focus on compliance, CEU training. I am in a different mindset of where I am building platform for legacy and for future. And I'm looking at the next 10, 15 years, and I'm basically trying to get NPMA and all these guys out there who have controlled the industry forever. Yep. Basically tell you really don't have the control you think you have, and you don't have the influence you think you have, because the people that are in our space, your customer, my customer, aren't really interested in them. Yeah. And so what I'm looking at is I'm setting the pace for the new arena, which we're in. And what you offer and what I offer and what I'm looking to offer is different and different flavors of things for the people. My audience is funny because when I do surveys on my podcast and then I do the same survey, I get totally different responses. My people listen to me for a reason. We connect. Yeah. It isn't that I'm trying to appeal to everybody. I'm appealing to the guy that's just like me, who started out with really bad training, virtually no training, started out in an industry where it's an awesome industry and nobody gave a darn to share, or this was before Facebook, before we had the groups, before we had the cemetery, before we had all these things. So to me, this competition is fuel while the average guy out there is being intimidated going, oh, but I don't want more people in the industry. I don't want more competition. To me, competition is fuel.
Yeah. 100%.
I thrive on it. I don't walk away from it. I'm dealing in Miami in a top 6 market in the country with the biggest companies on the planet, and I'm going head to head. Yeah. But I do it on my platform, on my videos, on my YouTube. I understand the game. Yeah. And I'm a player in the game, and my competition are players in the game. Like if we were in the NFL, I'm not looking at them as, oh, they're my competition, I hate them, or they're my enemies. And I teach everybody. So I'm like, why are you crazy enough to teach your own competition? Is that I get my jollies that way. I'm competitive as hell, and I'm not intimidated. So people don't get that. And if you're not competitive, you take everything as an offense, and you're always on defense instead of playing offense and saying, my goal is, how do I educate the world on integrated pest management? Not how do I build the biggest company on the planet, or how do I have a training platform that competes with everybody else? Yeah. I have a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
My goal right now is that I'm starting to get the respect in this industry that is taking me 6 years to get.
Yeah.
But from the people that normally would never be on a podcast like this.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, I got senior entomologists from major universities now wanting to be on my podcast.
Awesome.
So those are the people I'm going for. I'm going after that education. I'm educating the public on what real pest control is. That's my real goal. That's my bridge that gap. So my agenda is how do I build a platform to sell courses? That's not my agenda. It never has been. So therefore, I'm never intimidated by anybody. Like some people, like, I don't want to step on your toes. I said, dude, you ain't got shoes big enough. So to me, it's not an ego thing. It's more of I know what I want to accomplish. I know what I'm doing. I enjoy the process. This is not my bread and butter. I don't need to make money from this. This is my hobby. When people want to go fishing, I want to do podcasts.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's my hobby. So I love the fact that you're on. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that a lot of the guys that have consulted you that wanted to grow their business, I've talked to them.
They crush it.
And they're crushing it because they changed their mindset, and they went from like, I'm struggling a year ago to where I only had one route and I couldn't find people, to now where they got 4 trucks after 2 years.
Yeah.
So that to me is the exciting part. I am a champion. I love being the David, not the Goliath.
I love it, man.
I love being in that arena of being the David. It keeps me going and encourage me to help people that nobody really gives a darn about.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys have been. So I'm super stoked. I wanted, since we're talking about the pest control training that you guys are offering, and we're talking about the consulting, let's dive into some real heart issues about what you have to deal with in consulting and in helping people grow. And to me, it's always the mindset. I do a lot of business consulting for a lot of my friends who are starting businesses. And I've done that in the past, and I've done it for pastors that want to grow churches. And I've been in this game of consulting, sort of like you pick up the phone and you call me and, bro, I'm struggling, and I don't charge for it. And I have this 1 hour, which if I recorded all these conversations, I would have had one hell of a platform over the last 6 years, because I've never recorded the conversation. I told my buddy, we need to record these conversations. But what's the biggest challenge for the guy who is a one-man show?
Yeah, I think,
and he wants to grow.
Yeah, so let me start out with kind of this, what I think is a really important piece before I kind of get to jump into that. And here's what it is. There's something that I think all of us love about the pest control business. It's why we do what we do. It's why you do what you do. It's why that we do what we do. It's why we invest in companies today and all kinds of other stuff. And here's the thing that's great. And people say, well, Seth, and I hear this all the time, well, Seth, we don't want to grow our company to millions. We don't want to do that, right? And I'm like, that's fine. And I'll explain why I say this. Pest control is one of those businesses that allows people to do what they want to do at the pace that they want to do it, right?
Yeah.
It's totally fine to be an individual operator. No big deal. I mean, I know lots of companies who people make a great living and they have a great, let's call it a work-life balance. I believe we're in a circle, but or you can go and take it to mega millions, and you can do all of those, right?
Right.
And so I think as we talk about that in the individual operator and the things to how to help them go to the next level, I think the first thing is we have to respect that fact is that some people, their vision might be to go to, 4 trucks and do $800,000. They might make $350,000 a year. That's an incredible living. And I know individual operators who are doing $250,000 a year, who are putting $180,000 in their pocket. That's an incredible living, right?
Right.
And so these are really good basis for people. And so I think and I talk to a lot of individual operators, and we don't typically our consulting doesn't focus typically on the individual operators. They've got to be ready to kind of get to the next step.
Right.
But I do talk with a lot of them. So I think the biggest way that an individual operator that I see them going to the next level is, number one, they've got to get to your point, they've got to have the right mindset, right?
Right.
And that first mindset is that they have to have that kind of determined passion to just continue to focus on how to grow every day. And what I think happens to a lot of operators is that they've come historically from the pest control space, and all they know is how they've been taught and how they built a route before working for someone else. Right. The individual operators I see that really excel are the ones that can start to shift that mindset from, hey, I'm solving a problem, because no matter what, you're always solving a problem, right? It's they have to make that shift from I'm solving a problem to I'm ultimately taking care of my family. And the way I take care of my family is generate new business as much as I possibly can and take incredibly good care of those customers. And so I'll give you an example. So one of the companies that, and actually, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but we decided to run a project here in Tampa where we decided to start a company from the ground up about 6.5, 7 months ago. And he's part of these groups. And so he had no experience in the industry at all, right? And so I said, all right, man, let's do it. So let's go ahead and just go out there and run. Well, today he's built more than a full route and had no experience. Now, today he's an absolute expert. He only does lawn care. But we said, all right, so what you have to do is that you've got to really focus on blocking off your time, create revenue generating time, which is the time that you're focused on making money, right? And then you have to focus the other time you have on taking care of your customers. And you have to get incredibly good at that kind of block.
Yeah.
And
right? In sales, so to give some perspective, in sales, that's called the golden hour.
Sure.
When you're like, say you decide you're going to pound phone in the morning from 9 to 10, and you focus on that 1 hour, you get more calls done and more sales done in that block of time than if you say, I will do it today somehow.
100%.
So that's the for those of you that are in sales, that's the golden hour. Whatever you decide that block to be to grow, you're better off putting an hour aside or 30 minutes or whatever it is you can really do and just focusing. So sorry to bother you on that.
No. But I think that's a really important point. And I want to add to that point that you made about the golden hour, because that's a great terminology. I call it revenue producing time, golden hour, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a concept, right? And the concept is that's your dedicated time to make money. Now, here is something that's a really interesting takeaway for an operator out there, is that time is so critical to growth, regardless of what you're doing. If you're making calls, if you're getting the proposals done, I like the idea of just making calls, right? Or following up with emails, especially as an individual. But I think that the critical piece here is that time has to be laser focused and it cannot be interrupted. And I think what happens is that people interrupt the time. And so what happens is you're focused on revenue producing time. Maybe in your house, someone's knocking on your door. Maybe you're in your service vehicle, customers are calling. Like that time has to be 100% focused on revenue generating activity. To your point, and no one can interrupt it. Like we used to do that, like back in the sales, like in sales days. And I challenge our clients to do this as well as other things we're involved in. But I said, look, if anyone interrupts that time, they are taking away from your growth, right? And you need to own that time. And there's great books about that kind of stuff, man. But I agree with you, man. So I think that's one big challenge, is being able to time block effectively to where your customer doesn't own your day. You actually own your day as an individual operator, right?
Right. Yeah.
So does that answer your question kind of?
No, that's excellent. That's excellent. Let's talk about the second, I think the most common problem that operators have, because they tend to come from a technical mindset. They don't come from a sales background. They don't come 100%. From a marketing background. And sales and marketing comes across to them in their technical mind as sleazy. And the problem that I know is that I come from a sales background and a technical background and a marketing background. And I understand that nothing happens until something is sold and marketed. And the thing that people always have this thing is, well, I give quality, But the problem is you're the one that knows that good quality. Nobody else knows or gives a damn.
Yep.
And you have to get really good at that mind frame of being in sales and marketing. What's been the number one fear or things that you're dealing with in the consulting to help these people through this? Because I'm dealing with one right now.
Yep.
He doesn't want to do this and he doesn't want to do that because he's afraid of what his competition thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that I'm trying to get him through that hump, and that's a very difficult challenge.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple things. And some people may love what I'm going to say, and some people might think what I'm going to say is just terrible. And I'm okay with it either way.
Okay.
So I had a little bit of an aha moment one day, and I had a guy who's a pest control operator had called me. He's here locally, and he said, Seth, he's like, and he wasn't a good fit for our business, like for what we do. But I said, look, let's spend some time together. And let me see if I can kind of help you through some things. Individual operator. And so anyway, he came in, and I went and had lunch with him, bought him lunch. And here was the aha moment. I said, listen, listen, so tell me, so you got your brand, you got your truck wrapped, you're looking good, but you got no customers, right? And I said, so I want you to explain something to me. In this world where my old company is still one of the market players here, I said, what is your market share? Like, what do you think your market share is of the market, right? And remember, individual operator doesn't have a lot of business. And he said to me, and I think this was just a really big aha. He said to me, Seth, I think I have 10% of the market here in Tampa. I said, okay. And it was an aha moment for me because what I realized is that he was so excited about starting his company. He was so excited about getting the vehicle wrapped. He was so excited about all these things that what he forgot about is he didn't have customers, right? Yeah. In his mind, and I call that kind of your like it's something that business owners run into, and we'll talk about it kind of deeper, but it's business owners run into the fact that I'm a business owner and everyone knows who I am because I'm in my box, right? Like I'm the business owner, I'm the CEO, it's my box, right?
Right.
The fact is that people in the world don't know anything about you. And so you can have the top quality, you can be the absolute best technical guy in the entire world, except if you don't have anyone to show that skill set to, then all your skills are useless, right? And so if that's what you really believe, you should go work for a company, right? You shouldn't necessarily be the guy, right? But the other side, but I think the thing that we face, or that I think a lot of people face, is it's not about what your competition thinks, to your point, right? Like you made that point. You said, hey, it's not about what I'm out here in competition. They're our friends, but we're in competition with them, right? And you have to market. You've got to put yourself out there. It's not sleazy. And you'll hear me talk about this and some other stuff, but I believe if a pest control company as an individual operator really wants to kind of be the guy and help a lot of people, then I believe it's their obligation to go out there and sell and go out there and market and go out there and tell their story, because if they don't tell it, no one else is going to. And so I think people fall into that path sometimes. And I know you talked this where they're like, well, I only work on referral, right? Okay. But if you only have 5 customers or 50 customers referring you, it's going to take a long time until those people they're referring you, And I know that, like, when I talk to companies, one of the things is, and I think this is really important, a really important thing, is we have to realize as pest control operators where we fit, right? And one of the things is that I think as you think about being a business CEO or you're thinking about running a company, is what we have to realize is people aren't thinking about us all the time. So even though we think about our customers all the time, they're not thinking about us all the time. Right. And so if you build your business on referral or marketing or whatever you do, Billy Sue, your customer who you love, you have a cup of coffee with every time you go out there and do service with her, the second you walk out that door, Billy Sue isn't thinking about you anymore, right? Billy Sue's on to whatever her next task is, and she's not going, hey, I want to go promote Seth's company, right? And so I think that it's not a sleazy thing. I think it's an obligation to go tell your story, and then you tell your story as frequently as you want in whatever cases, any way you want, in order to expand your business to the size that you want to expand it. Is that a good thought from your perspective, Franklin?
Yeah, because most people are thinking in sales and marketing from a commercial pitch, but marketing has really shifted in the last decade to more of storytelling and more of education and training. And if you're the best guy in the market and you say you're the best guy, then why aren't you putting out, let's talk about content?
Sure.
That influences that buyer to say, yeah, this is truly the best guy I've ever seen. Because when I started my company, I said, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to blog and I'm going to do YouTube videos.
Yeah.
and I'm going to educate my client on what IPM is and what natural pest control is, what it isn't. Yep. And because I believe that I'm truly the best at it. The problem is I could not give a darn about what my competition thought or the criticism I'm going to get in order to do this. But since I've been a seasoned salesperson for 30 years, this is not something that is unnatural. It is unnatural for the guy who's a technician who tends to be more in the middle, introverted towards the middle. He's not usually an extrovert like me. I'm a social butterfly. He tends to be more in the middle. The putting out the information, but I'm going to be training my competition. I said, you don't understand. Your competition already knows all this. You're just not willing to put it out.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that I talk about things that everybody's been talking about. The problem is not a very few people have heard it, but not everybody is telling it from my perspective.
Yeah.
So I can tell the same story somebody else is telling it, but I'm telling it from my perspective. So that is one of the things that getting these guys who are starting out, who are growing, to understand that, the always be closing doesn't really work a whole lot, but always be educating, always be out there. And let's talk about the difference between the mentality they have, because they're not building brand.
Yep.
At one point you need to build transactions, but brand is in longevity to me.
Yep.
I need to do sales because I understand I need to pay that new truck off. I need to pay that logo off. I need to pay the mortgage every month. My kids need to eat. Those are the realities, but they're doing a terrible job at branding. And they're just focused on so when they do a Facebook ad, if it didn't produce an immediate sale, Facebook doesn't work. This nothing work, everything. So let's talk about that mindset of marketing, branding, sales, and how does that all work in to what you're doing?
Yeah. So I had a really brilliant guy he's worked on my team for a long time, describe marketing and branding to me in a really neat way. And I thought this made a lot of sense, right? So marketing is generate dollars, right? Generate dollars, right? At the end of the day, marketing is designed to qualify leads, states for small companies. So your marketing expertise, your marketing generates leads. That's what marketing should do. Now branding, which is the function of marketing, is more like a big wheel. So if you think about your big wheel, which is your content wheel, just like Pest Geek does, and just like your podcast does, you've got this massive big content wheel that spins, right?
Right.
And the whole vision is that so the whole thing is that you get that wheel spinning. And the thing about big wheels is big wheels, once they start spinning, they always spin, right?
Right.
So that's branding. Marketing is this little wheel, like when it comes to lead generation, it's a little wheel that just spins like this, right? So it makes money. The faster you spin it, the more money it makes. But when you stop, it stops spinning. Branding, the big wheel always spins, right? And then once you put a big wheel in motion, it keeps going. So I think when I think about marketing in branding, I think branding is a function of marketing for sure. But I think that marketing is the only outcome of marketing when it relates to lead generation is how many leads do you convert, how many leads do you generate? And then from there it becomes a sales process with how do you convert those leads, right? Yeah. For marketing, or for branding, it's about spinning the big wheel so people get to know you. And then ultimately, the better you do at branding, potentially the less you can do it in this like lead generation marketing, is people know you, they see you as the industry expert, they know all those different components, right?
Right.
That's like the bigger picture from my perspective. I think from an operator, I think from an individual, I think that what happens is, and this is a lot of companies, not just individual operators, but even small to medium companies. And the big companies have this piece kind of figured out now, which for years they didn't, and we took advantage of that back in the day. But the thing about it is that when people think about marketing or branding, they think about it incredibly from a tactic standpoint, not from a strategic standpoint, right? And so it's throw something there and see if it sticks, right? That whole adage of spaghetti against the wall. Right. Let's throw some spaghetti. If it sticks, we'll keep doing it. Let's throw some spaghetti. But the thing is that there's no strategy to it. It's just what sticks. And that's really like those one-off Facebook ads, right? Right. But you'll see the companies that are really sophisticated, that they're building these long-term kind of strategic approaches, right? So they're telling the story, or they call them funnels or whatever they call them today, right? Right. So they're building the story, then it's next. And over time, they're educating the consumer to make that buying decision. So when that consumer is ready to make the buying decision, they think of your company first, right? Right. Right. Am I still with you? I know I chased squirrels. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm fired up. No, I'm good. Let's talk about that, because I think that's just you're hitting nails
on the head. And I'm trying to mentally keep up with you.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But that's cool. That's cool. Cause I can do this.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the marketing and you talk about throwing the spaghetti up on the wall, the problem is they don't know which spaghetti to throw up.
Right. And so they waste all their money throwing tons of spaghetti.
Yeah. And then what you have is nothing works. That doesn't work. So I'll go back to my referral business because that's comfortable for them.
Yep.
That's manageable. And what I look at is, to me, what I do is anytime I'm going into something new, I will usually invest 40 to 100 hours of educating myself on it.
Brilliant.
And what happens when I talk to a lot of guys there are solo operators, and we're going to focus pretty much on solo because the guy who has a 10, truck company has figured this out sort of.
Yeah.
His goal is I want to go from 2.5 to 6 million. I want to be on the PCT 100, or I want to grow to sell. Yeah. But the average guy, he's like, I'm running a route. I'm putting in 14 hours. I'm up to doing 150K a year. I no longer have time to grow because I don't have the time to educate. And then he talks to all these guys and he feels like everybody's taking, one guy wants 15 a month and the other one's 2,000 a month to do Facebook ads. And they don't know what they're buying because they don't understand the lingo. Yeah. They don't understand this world of social media marketing. So what's happening with a lot of these guys is I don't have the time to either educate myself because I'm going home after 10, 12 hours, then I'm doing marketing. I mean, I'm doing the books and then I want to spend time with my kids. I invest in education constantly. Yeah. And to me is I need to know where the next big thing is and start investing those 50, 100 hours into understanding it. Like I'm trying to learn TikTok right now. I'm trying to understand the platform. I'm trying to understand the algorithm and all this. So
I'm, man.
Yeah, it is. So because it's like, why are you going to be on TikTok doing videos? Well, I'm already doing videos and they're getting looked at. So to me, I put that energy and effort into learning something new, and I try to do 1 to 2 big things a year. That's it. And these little things are basically tactics, but the problem is they're mostly focused on tactics. You nailed it on the head. It's about a strategy. And they don't get the whole strategy thing. That strategy is layered on investments over time, but there's error along the way that you need to budget for, especially like with Facebook ads. When I look at Facebook ads and say, we're going to run I got to say, okay, can we do 10 Facebook ads? Yeah. Plunk $100 into each ad, do A/B split testing and see which one actually outperforms. And he says, but I'm going to spend $1,000 on learning. Yes, I go into college. You spend $30,000 on an education and you still don't have a job.
I'll tell you this, Frank. I really like that concept. And I think one of the things, if I was to go start a company from the ground up today with no resources, and I got to that $150,000 mark, to your point, is what I would challenge an individual operator to do before they ever went and spent $1 on advertising is do exactly what you just described, is to go in there, go learn the system. And I say dollars before they ever outsource anything to anyone, right? Right. Now understand, I own an ad agency and I'm saying this, right? Right. Before you ever outsource money to anyone is that you should go in there and have a fundamental understanding of how it works and try to execute on yourself and execute to the point where you get success. So even if it's, to your point, 40 to 100 hours, like to your point, go do it. Because here's what happens is that what happens is now, once you have a concept behind you, it makes sense to source it to somebody else because then you can go back to your core business, which is growing a pest control company. And now you know how to hold that company accountable for results, right? If that company's not accountable to results, then you're no longer, then you move to another company because you have a deep enough understanding of what to do, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, if you just hand something off and say, do something with this, and you don't have 10 grand to throw at it, they'll eat up your ad budget. Like, you're looking at like $4,000. What did you guys do? I didn't get a single call. And it's like, we're in testing. And that's one of the things that people don't understand when they're trying to buy these new services is that a lot of the money initially is spent on testing. Yeah. And the company needs to test ads to see, and then who's doing the creative? Yeah. Who's doing the copywriting? Yeah. Yeah. Do they understand your customer
buying? I mean, are they really an ad agency, or is it just a kid who's 25 and says, I know how to throw Facebook because I know how to do, the keyword research? Like everybody thinks it's keyword. It's not. There's a lot of time and money that you have to put into it. And I'd say start off with $1,000.
Yeah.
Put in the hours in learning, and then say, okay, we figured out these 3 ads. Now stick $3,000 into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the concept of throwing gas on the fire, right? So it's the concept of, once you, and this is something we talk a lot about with our customers on the consulting side, is that, because I get to ask this question a lot, and it's interesting. So they spend $5,000 or $10,000 on social media ads, and when I would start with a customer, they might be closing 10 deals a month. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? This makes no sense, right? So where's the whole process broken? Well, it's not. It may not be broken on the marketing side. The marketing side might be generating exactly what they need to do. It might be broken on the sales side, or it might be broken somewhere else, right? Because so I agree with you. The one thing that I would say is I would challenge is the fact that I don't know if someone needs to take it all the way to mastery before they would source it. I think they just need to have a deep understanding, because what I think can happen. I think what can happen is, to your point earlier, is when you think tactically, right? When you think tactically and you're starting to develop that strategic thinking, it helps you grow your business. Is that if it doesn't work immediately, you find yourself feeling like you're wasting money. And that might be a skill, right? So it might be a skill that has to be learned. And so it might make sense that after you go through, you spend your $1,000, you get your education, you put your 40 to 100 hours in, you spend some money, maybe it's not successful, but at least you have the concept behind you. So you're ready to find the person that can kind of get you ready to pass on. You know what I mean?
I think it has to do with educating yourself to figure out if you're even a fit for that agency. Because what I talk to a lot of guys is I'll talk to an ad guy, and I say, okay, what's your churn rate on your customer? And he says, well, it's like 40%. And I said, so you're getting a 60% retention because 40% don't understand what it is you're trying to do.
100%.
And what I would like to do is the owner to educate himself on what it is that ad agency is going to actually do, because he doesn't understand the lingo. Yeah. The ad agency starts throwing out all these fancy terms and gives you a list of, we're going to do all this thing. And I said, I look, they send it over to me. I said, dude, this is marshmallow. Yeah. There's very little substance. It's sugar and air, because all they're giving you is a bunch of checklists on reports they're going to give you. They're not actually telling you what they're actually doing. And of course, they're not going to share tactical strategy with you, but you have to have that intelligence so that you know what you're buying and you know what you're getting into, and you're a fit, and to find out if you're even a fit to work together.
But here's the thing, man, and this is going to probably piss some people off, and I'm okay with it. Okay. And I'm okay with it, and I know a lot of the agency guys, and a lot of them are great guys, and a lot of them are friends of mine. And here's the thing: if an ad agency should tell you what they're going to do. Like, they should walk you through their strategy. They should tell you exactly how they're going to do it. Because here's the reality: is that my job as an operator is to grow a pest control company, right? I want to trust my ad agency to be able to, they're going to walk me through every single step of the way, right? Because if they go away, cool. There's no secret sauce, right? Like, companies will say, I've got this secret sauce, I've got this secret plan. Nah. There's no such thing anymore, man. Like, it's who can execute better and who can follow the newest rules better. That's all it is.
And that's the key right there, that execution, because 99% of the guys that are listening to me right now, 99%, I'm giving them all the training in the world. I'm giving all the free consulting. I'm putting everything out there. Yeah. And they're going to do zero with it.
100%, man.
And it's always, I don't have the time. Yeah. So, and I don't trust anybody. So you're stuck like Chuck, bro, because if you don't trust anybody, you won't spend the time to educate yourself, and you don't want to give up the money. You're never going to grow. Well, you just can't. Yeah, your goal just can't be to be 5 million, right? Your goal needs to be realistic for you. Right. And again, like we said at the very beginning, like, you get to choose that life in this industry, which is great, right? Right. But yeah, man. Sorry, you got me all fired up about this, because I think that's cool. I think transparency is really important. Yeah. I think when it comes to working with vendors need to tell you what they do. And again, like, when we work with on our coaching side, is like, man, we tell people, and they'll all vouch for it, man. Like, the one thing we'll say is, I'll say, look, guys, we could be 100% wrong with what we're talking about right now. Like, what we're talking about could be 100% wrong.
it might be right. And if we're wrong, we're okay with being wrong. That's not a big deal, right? But let's work together. And by the way, here's the 15 things that you need to do or walk through that might help you today. Make sense?
Yep.
Make sense? But yeah, I think that, if you look at other industries and you look, because one of the things that I think for pest control as a whole as an industry, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is that we're doing things that are 10 to 15 years behind a lot of other industries, right? So today, in other industries, like in my technology companies, like when I would work with them, I would go work with an ad agency, and let's say, I don't know, let's make them a number. I'm going to go spend $25,000 or $30,000 a month in some specific ad spend. Dude, sure as shit, they're going to walk me through every single step. They're going to get every single step approved, right? And I think people should do that in this industry. I think they should do it, man. I think it would help. I think it would help us become better as an industry as a whole. So,
yeah, no,
that's
okay. That's okay. That's cool. I love it. Yeah, no, I talk to a lot of guys who hit me up, who hear my podcast, who hear me.
I love your podcast.
And they want to sell me, this and that and the other. I'm like, okay, so show me where you've actually accomplished this.
Yeah.
In a top 6 market, top 10 market, what have you accomplished and what have you actually done for your clients?
Yep.
Crickets.
Well, I think,
and those are the questions that I think people, what are you doing? I mean, show me your expertise, because I'm already ranking for my number 1 search term on Google. Yeah. I'm number 1 on Google. What are you going to do that's better than that?
Well,
as far as SEO goes.
Do you know what's interesting about that point? So, and man, again, I'm going to probably upset everyone, but I don't mean to, but it's what it's about. So one of the things that people always like, because there's a lot of marketing out there, and there's lots of great companies. But one of the things people always say is, like, companies call and they go, "Hey, I'm going to get you a big following. I'm going to get you a huge following." Yeah. Right? You know what my litmus test is? Because I get the calls all the time, and and we have a marketing team and everything else for our companies, and we run Pest Daily as a function of our agency and some different things. But you know what I ask? I say, look, my very first litmus test is I go to their social pages and I see what their following is, right? So if someone's going to tell me, dude, I have people calling me now, and I'm going to stand on my soapbox. I'm going to say this. It's not the way I mean it, but I'm going to say it. People call me all the time. And they say, Seth, hey, we're going to go show you how to build a LinkedIn following and go build tons of connections and generate money from LinkedIn. I get that call all the time, right? Dude, I have 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. It's been maxed out. I sit on their global marketing committee. And here's the crazy thing is I go look at their stuff, and they've never done any bit of research on me, right? They have 250 followers, and it's their first year out of college, right? But it's like, they want to help me. No. They want to get my business, right? But I can teach them. You know what I mean? And that's the same thing with Facebook. It's one of the things that I love about Pest Geeks, right? Like, your podcast, it's so powerful because it is what it is, right? People know it. They know they're going to come there. They're going to get great education from the IPM guys, from people that are industry experts. They know they're going to hear you talk about it, and they're going to walk away with that one little bit of information. It's going to potentially change their entire life, right? Yep. Right? And that's how people need to think, to your point about content development. It's that one little piece of one little takeaway, man. Yep. And it's the same thing with like and again, not to pitch, but with Pest Daily, like when we built this thing, like people ask me all the time, like they're going, Seth, well, I've learned this course and it's kind of hard to implement or it's hard to execute. And I say, that's because it's not designed for that, right? It's designed to teach a concept and for you to go back and understand that concept again and go back and understand that concept again. And so when you go into that one scenario, you get one little bit of information that changed that customer, changed that sales opportunity for you. Yeah. That's what it's designed to do, right? Yeah. And it's the same thing. And that's how people need to think. Sorry, I'm way down the path.
No. That's cool. No, that's really cool. Because here's the way I look at it. I've been teaching IPM for 10 years. I did it for 4 years. I actually teach at my extension service. And I teach to landscapers and guys. And always like on IPM, it's like, well, you can't do IPM because in pest control, you always have to spray the perimeter, and that's not IPM. I said, you're totally wrong.
100%.
Because what happens with IPM is a set of principles.
Yep.
And the way I look at IPM is I look at a mechanic and he's got this 1,000 piece snap-on tool set. Every car that comes in, he doesn't get to use all those pieces. Yeah. He only gets to use the tool that is needed at that time to do it. But if exclusion is the tool, and there's always monitoring and inspection and follow-up, our secret is inspection and follow-up.
Yeah.
What's the secret to our success is inspection and follow-up. We don't wait for the customer to call us and tell us, hey, I need you to come back because you were here last week.
Yeah.
We're like, we know we have that species of ant. We know we're going to have to come back in 7 days to monitor, inspect, and retreat if necessary. And that's IPM.
Yeah.
See, it always isn't. So when I teach and I try to your point, is that a lot of the stuff that I try to raise questions in people's mind and challenge the thinking and the status quo, because they're like, well, if you're spraying every week, that's not IPM. That might be necessary because that is the only option. But if once you solve that problem, do I always have to treat the inside of a home every single time? No, I don't. I just have to go show up and be monitoring and inspecting outside. So I'm always looking for something, but I'm not necessarily having to treat everything inside that home, only the outside. But those are the things that, so yes, when I do, like, I'm testing stuff all the time. Like when I did this podcast years ago, it was like a 30-minute podcast. I was doing an hour. And 3 people were whining and complaining that it was too long. So I shortened it down to 30 minutes and lost half my audience. I realized really quick that it isn't for that guy, but for my audience, they enjoyed the hour. So what did I do? I put out a survey in all the groups.
Yeah.
How long do you want a pest control podcast to be? Everybody said 15 minutes tops. I go on my podcast 30 minutes to an hour. My audience has something else they're expecting. And here's what I do. So now I'm doing 2-hour podcasts.
It's awesome.
Because I'm testing, but I have the data.
Yeah.
I have the intel. I have the info because I'm constantly. So now I'm doing 60-second TikTok videos, and I'm doing 6-minute demos, and I'm doing 2-hour podcast. And I'm doing, because what I look at marketing is I'm in the business to give people the service that we offer.
Yeah.
But I have to give it in a way that they're going to consume the information.
100%.
It isn't no longer about, well, I'm doing an ad in a book, or I'm doing an ad, a billboard, which nobody's looking at a billboard because everybody's down on their phone, looking at their phone at the light. I don't know why the hell you're putting up billboards. But in any case.
For the record, I love billboards. I'm not going to lie. I had tons of billboards back in the day.
I know, but I'm a marketing guy, so I notice everything around me, and I'm constantly observing everything. But the average guy. Yeah, but everybody's on their phone. So where do I need to be? It's like I talk to, for all my entomology guys out there and all the course guys out there who says, no, I want to build a course that, but people have to, the live events, and you get 12 people in a room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but because live events is what I prefer, I think it's better. It says it has nothing to do with what you think. It has to do with what they want to consume.
Yep.
So if the guy, that's why I do a podcast and I do video and I blog, because it doesn't matter to me. I'm a terrible writer. My grammar sucks. And yet I get more people going to my Pest Geek podcast site on a monthly basis than most associations gets on there, because I have the analytics.
Yeah. 100%.
So to me, it's about, I'm so focused on what people really want, the way they want to consume it. And then I basically hear what people are saying. Like right now, I'm talking to you and I'm looking at this because one guy, David, is driving and he's listening to this on Facebook. So we're love the billboards too, Hal Coleman says. So to me, it's about what is necessary in the market. But what people got to realize is that I'm day trading for attention as a marketer. In the end.
Well, I could tell you something else, and you know, this is probably a really deep topic, and we actually did build a course in the system on this, and people will skip over the course, but it's a really interesting one, and it's on consumer buying behavior and understanding the personality profiles before you communicate to them. Now, this is and again, there's a course in Pest Daily about this, but the reality is to your point, is that if you understand the buying behavior or the communication style, and you can nail that communication style as it relates to marketing, you win every single time, right? And I think that, to your point that you're making, like it's a really important thing. And so if you take data and you layer data on top of buying behavior, dude, you win every time, right? Now, I think for you, what you've done an amazing job of is, because Pest Geeks, you can hit so many different things. You're trying TikTok, you're doing social, is, man, you're hitting you're hitting this big broad net of anyone in the industry, right?
Right.
And you're connecting to so many people, which is just ultra powerful, man. It's just ultra powerful.
I just want to do Facebook. I said, the thing is, you want to do Facebook, but that 25-year-old guy who's just getting into the industry doesn't want to be on Facebook because Facebook is old. I mean, it's aged, and he'd rather be on Instagram. Yeah. And then you got these 18 to 20-year-olds now, and TikTok is progressively getting older. Yeah. Where it's no longer so I'm trying to hit everything where everybody's at. But to your point about customer buying habits, not only that, but as a marketer, and when you get really good at the marketing, now you drive the behavior. Yes. Through the funnel, so you can say, okay, I want my customers, when they land on my page, I no longer want them to call me. I want them to click here, and I want them to follow the funnel. And then I want it because I want to create a self-directed site. Yep. And people are like, and I hear people all the time, customers are never going to do that. Yeah. That's the same thing they said about Amazon. Yeah. Because he's an idiot. I heard the comments for 20 years. This guy's never going to launch this. It's never going to get off the ground. It's never going to do anything. And then it does, because I understand that you're not seeing what he sees from behind the scenes. Do you know what's interesting? So it's interesting to talk about data. And so I look at data across the country, and especially buying behaviors. And, one of the things that I've noticed a tremendous amount, and I'm not going to get in for all of our customers, we're not giving away any secret sauce, so don't worry about it. But what we notice is that in different parts of the country, the consumers are self-opting in and buying. In other parts of the country, they're not. Right. What's really interesting is here in Florida, people aren't self-opting into websites to buy pest control as much as they are in California or as much as they are in the Northeast. It's really crazy. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that as you start layering over the age demographics, is the people that are buying, we would assume and go, okay, well, if they're buying out in California through the websites and they're younger, right? Would they be younger or not? The fact is, it's almost equally dispersed to people that are 55 to 65, and then the people that are 25 and below. The middle group, which is my age group, we're not buying online, which is crazy. Because if I looked at the data, I would think completely different. Like it's just nuts, man. But in Florida, like in the Miami markets, for example, there's in the Miami market is probably the lowest propensity to buy online for pest control in Florida versus, like, if you look at Tampa, it's a little higher. And then if you go to Jacksonville, everyone's buying online, which to me is ass backwards. Like the culture. It would be kind of backwards, And it has to do with the demographics. And this is where people don't understand about Miami. When I talk, I understand my market, so I understand. I love Miami, man. I love Miami. I love to visit here. I've always hated living here, by the way. Always, since I was a kid. I was in my 20s and I went to go live in the Midwest. But what happens is it's the demographics. People don't understand. Yep. You have a 65% Hispanic market, which you don't have anywhere in the county. You have 1.8 million people. 65% is Hispanic. Older population too, right? And well, yeah, it's dispersed, so then when you get into the psychographics of how they're very distrusting about. They're uneducated about going online and ordering because everything is in English. So when you have a huge population, that becomes a hindrance. How often in your market, because it's a highly educated market, right? Like in your market, how many times do you find yourself having to really, really educate on IPM versus kind of someone walking and spraying baseboards? I bet you 100%. Yeah, I bet you see it a lot still. 100%. Every time when I talk, what I do is I have leading questions, and I'll say, "Are you familiar with IPM?" They're like, no, I have no. 100% of the time, it's been like that for 13 years. Nobody knows what IPM is. Yeah. So then I explain the concept, and then I explain where it's used, and I said, "Have you ever seen a guy in a hospital spraying baseboards?" Yeah. And I said, "No. Why? Because there's people in there, there's sensitivities you don't know. This is where IPM is used. This is what we do as a company. You can't spray a hospital surgical room because you have a trail of ants. So what we do is we take the same technology and bring it over into the home. Yeah. I just gave everybody my secret. I will guarantee you that 99% of guys says he's full of crap. and that will never sell. I said, it sells every time because I educate people on what we do. And I challenge them on saying, we do surgical clinics, which we do. We do medical centers. We do things like that. So the 100% of what we do is really education on the sales part. The thing is, I turned it into a 3-minute presentation. I got a 30-second hook, 3-minute presentation, and then we have the online resource that we send them so that they can see our videos and they can see the process and they can understand. So by the time they're done with me in 3 minutes, they know more about real pest control than 90% of my competitors they're going to call, because all they want to do is get their name number to send a salesman out. I closed.
Do you know what's interesting? And it's interesting because I've never heard that process from you before, and I think it's a brilliant process. Is when we got into this business a long time in 08, knowing that we didn't know anything about the business, right? Like, I think we didn't know anything. We knew a little bit, but we didn't really know how to sell. We didn't know really the process. And the way we learned is we walked on the street and sold stuff, right? That's how we learned. But the thing that was interesting is when we had that big aha moment, it was very similar to what you just described. It was, how do you talk to a consumer or talk to a commercial account about about there's just no need for pesticide, right? And or like, which for us was we were learning IPM, but it wasn't at the level that you study it, right?
And
so I had a chance to study that San Francisco IPM Tier 3 methodology.
Oh, that's where we got it from.
Yeah, right. So I got a chance to study that back in, I guess, 08, 09. And one of the things that was really interesting is that now if people that listen to me talk, they'll hear me talk about how, commercial accounts lead into tons of good business. Always sell commercial accounts, and then to certain types of commercial accounts. I'm always on top of that. But the thing that we used to do is that, and you're familiar with leadership, energy, and efficient design.
So this is what we use as a protocol.
100%. So that protocol was brand new in 2008. And one of the things that was really important is that when customers would try to understand why we didn't spray baseboards or why these processes were different, or why I would tell them we're not going to put any pesticide down unless it was absolutely necessary, because that was my understanding, right? Is I would talk to them and say, hey, listen, so at the end of the day, the most efficient buildings in the country use this process, right? And it's a gold stamp by a government agency, this process, right? And this is what you should use at your house. Just to your point about medical centers. And you know what, man? Sure enough, people did it. People did it.
And so when we say we're green, people think, oh, you're spraying a Sentry. I have never sprayed a Sentry inside a home, and I wouldn't, because that thing can trigger an asthma or an allergy. So what we did is for people who don't know what you just threw out, San Francisco Tier 3. San Francisco has the most strictest pesticide policies in the country, and they break their pesticides down by tiers. Tier 3 is considered the safest products to use. So basically, mostly gel baits, spinosad, and things like that. And then you take lead, and you take the lead approach, which is, by the way, for people like organic pest control, organic facilities don't use organic products because there are none available to use in an organic facility. It's IPM, San Francisco Tier 3, lead. If you take that process, you've got an eco-friendly approach that will rival anybody in the world.
Well, and I think that's important, because one of the things that people like, and we see them in the posts all the time, and I stay off my soapbox because I am pretty technical. I mean, I was a certified operator in a couple of categories, but I stay away from the technical side because there's a lot of really technical, good people in this industry that are 1,000 times better than me. But one of the things that I think there's a misconception about, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, is the concept of a green program isn't only use organic green products, right? It's that tiered system. To your point, it's you start at Tier 3. Then if you can't solve the problem, you go to Tier 2. If you can't solve it at Tier 2, then you go to Tier 1. Well, in Tier 1 and Tier 2, there's conventional products there, right? And I think that and I've been on a soapbox about this before. I'll stay off it today because I'm not the ultra technical guy like you and a lot of other people. But the thing here is that it's about a regimented process and approach creates an environmentally sensitive program, right?
And that's listen, you don't have to be super technical to understand it, but this is where people fall apart with protocol and process.
100%.
And they just focus on product.
Well, and you see it, man. You see people that have some of these products that are failing, right? Well, I use this, we're trying to stay 100% green. Well, dude, use something else, man. If it's not working, go look it up. Find the next product and use the next right product. It doesn't have to necessarily fall into this little category of,
but to your point, that's the process right there. Is you start out at inspection, understanding, identifying, and then you say, okay, what is the tier 3 method? The tier 3 method could be a glue board.
100%. Yep. 100%.
That could be the solution to that problem. It doesn't need to be a rodenticide. So if you're able to solve it here, but here's what happens with driving consumer. This is what I'm talking about. Driving the consumer behavior through the innovation versus when I explain to my customer, here's the way the conversation goes, Seth, 100% of the time. Hey, I need you to come to my house and spray my house for bugs. And then I say, okay. And then I immediately ignore that comment and I don't correct them. And I said, okay, well, tell me about the problem that you're having.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after they tell me all the problems they have, because they're going to feel like I got spiders and I got this and I got that. And after they've told me everything, I listen intently. And I said, okay, then I asked them the question, do you know about us or our company? No, I just saw that you're eco-friendly and natural. And I said, okay, great. Now, do you know about IPM? Let me tell you about IPM. And that's a 30-second conversation. Yeah. And then I educate them about IPM and why we don't spray their house, because it's not necessary. Because if a bug is up in a cabinet, spraying it down here is never going to solve it. Very simple stuff. Taking it down to the ridiculous. So we explain our process and how it's used in LEED buildings, how it's the method that is used by the Asthma and Allergy Foundation. This is the method recommended by people are like their pets. This is the method recommended, the process recommended by the American Veterinary Association. And I send them a link to that. And I said, here it is. So this is what's the best thing for you. What the problem is, you got used to your mama being 50 years old, coming in and spraying every month with a product that if you plied it up down here, it knocked it off the ceiling. Those products don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So this is the process that is best for you to be eco-friendly, because we don't have a natural product to solve ants and roaches inside the home. We don't have it.
Well, in the reality, I think, Franklin, is that, if we talk about the business function of this whole thing, is that what we've just done is made the application easier for the technician, a better application to the consumer, and then it's a more profitable service at the end of the day, right?
It is. It's just that most people, what happens with the resistance that we have in the industry, this is why you and I are able to sell it, is because there's a huge amount of resistance saying, oh, when I hear natural, I hear eco-friendly, and I hear Essentia in my head.
Yeah.
No, it's not about it. We use Essentia. I use hundreds of gallons of Essentia, but we use it outside for plants and fruit trees and ornamentals and lawn fleas and ticks. We would never spray that in a house. Yeah. And so what I'm looking at is creating a process. We did the same thing. We took out all the articles, and we took out all the recommended processes, and we said, work it. And you're in Tampa, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But the thing with Tampa is you guys get pretty cold up there.
Well, I mean, compared to Miami,
But remember, you're what people don't understand about Tampa is that you're in a complete USDA climate zone.
Yep, we are.
Then we are down here. Yep. So I am actually subtropical where you're not.
Yeah, and we bring all the plants in from my house every year, man, and we bring them in from Miami, and they die the following year because we're in the wrong climate zone.
so that's what people don't understand. So we're in a unique. So I've developed my process and my protocol and my procedure based on what we do down here.
That's awesome.
And so that's the difference. So that's an important part about creating a business strategy. It's, yes, you're the best guy in the industry, but unless you can articulate your strategy of why you're better, why it is that what is that USP that people don't seem to get in marketing? The unique selling proposition is, oh, you're just selling fear. No, I'm selling an educated process to a highly educated client who is ignorant about IPM. Yeah. And that's all I've done. And they have the ability and the willingness to pay for it.
Yeah, so you walk through all the different steps, right? So you walk through the education, the marketing component, the education component, understanding that's a qualified buyer, and then they make the decision, right? Like you hit all those key points, right? And I think the important part is, like, if someone had like a takeaway, from like us going through this process, is like they might be able to follow that specifically, right? But there's other methodologies out there too that are good, bad, and different, right? But I think I think the biggest takeaway for someone going back to like that original question about how do you grow your company is that you get a process in place, right? Whether it's the perfect one or not, whether it's something someone else uses or not, and you just follow that process regimentedly. You know what I mean? So you just always follow it. So, for you guys, which is similar to our company, we sold on IPM, we sold on tier 3, we sold commercial accounts. That's spun off our residential business. For somebody else, their idea customer profile might be a little different. They might want to only sell to a residential house. And let's say they want to spray baseboards. Like if they want to do that, well, then they need to have the process to teach the customer they're going to spray baseboards, right?
And that is a valid business model because that is what you do. And if you're in an aging clientele, that's what they expect. If my older people, I have to educate them of why they don't want it.
Yep.
And because of the science. But if they want to be in that space, then that older clientele says, you're never going to come in here unless you spray my baseboards.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. So I guess maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I was sitting down one day and I was like, man, I was actually really thinking about this deeply. And I said, what if we started a brand as a test? And I said, what if I started a brand that was like, we kill everything, right? And our marketing was, we're going to power spray your house every single service. And
right.
Our whole brand and everything was about just like overkill, right?
Right.
I kept going, if we could identify our ideal customer profile, is there buyers for that program? And now, again, I wasn't going to start the brand, but I started thinking about this like really deep. And of course there's a buyer for that because you know what? My neighbor across the street from me, you know what the first thing he asks every time one of the pest control guys comes to my house? Hey man, you got any of that good stuff that you can come spray the outside of my house with?
Yeah.
That guy's the buyer. Like if we pulled up with a lawn rig and we were doing people would buy that product. But now that's not I don't believe in that. I don't think it's the right thing. But the thing is that to your point, if you know that, if you can market to that customer and you can educate them on why, and they're the right person, they fit that ideal customer profile, and you have your unique selling proposition, dude, you can win that customer too, right?
Yeah. But I got a guy here locally.
Yeah.
Who has about, I think 3 or 4 trucks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
The name, I want to give him a plug. His name of his company is called Dr. Death.
Right.
He's got black truck, white skull, and bones.
Yeah.
Called Dr. Death. We kill like literally everything. And it's fine. I don't fall into that whole criticism thing.
Yeah, I think it's
because I'm in marketing and I understand that there's a buyer for everything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, great, that's great for him. I sell against it. So what is the difference? We sell a niche market.
Yeah.
And we sell to an emerging niche market. This is the thing, that it's emerging and it's growing to more and more people. What we're having is millennials that are having kids and they don't want the pesticides in the home now, where they used to have the traditional service. And they say, since we have the kid, we don't want it anymore.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, like to your point, I would probably challenge and say it's no longer the emerging market. I would say it's probably the norm today. Yeah. Like you're probably selling to the norm. Like the norm, if they can understand the education you're providing from, especially the way you're doing it, I think the norm would prefer that. And if you think about 10 years ago, the products hadn't evolved as much. Now the products are incredibly evolved. And they're just, but I would say that it's probably more than an emerging market today. I would tell you that if we really looked at the data, I bet it's 50-50 or not the norm today.
It's growing. It's just that the companies that are emerging to do this kind of service are just not nationwide yet. In other words, if the Truly Orkins Terminex tomorrow decided, we're doing this, as a green brand and pumped the money. I mean, we see Aptiv doing it. They're the 6th largest company on the planet. People will criticize them and their marketing and their tactics and all this. I says, it proves to you that customers want to buy this. If customers didn't want to buy this, and I understand it's a marketing machine and I get it. I don't have an issue with it. I don't have those issues personally. So I look at all that and I say, okay, this is when I decided to do this back in 2009, the amount of people that were spending money on organic was 4% of the market on organic products in general. when I did the market study, I understand the fusion of innovation. And I said, okay, let's wait until it gets to about 12. Then I'll rebrand. So my plan was rebrand this company. And actually, I thought about having two separate companies, one that did pest control, one that did lawn care.
That's what we did originally. That's how we did it.
And then split it off. I decided I didn't have the budget for it. So I just sold off some entities and then started this brand, and which I'm in the process now of eventually dumping the L&O and staying with the GHP and just growing that. But that's been my strategy, is just that there's 50 things I want to do. I mean, it's like if I talk to a consultant and he's going to tell me, okay, this is what you have to do. I got it. They're all on my list. The thing is, I need the revenue to do it. So my thing is, I'm going to live pretty humbly so I can pump in all the money into the growth to grow this bad boy. But I'm in a market where it's really tough. People don't understand that the majority of the brands that come down here to Miami don't make it. It's one of those markets people stay away from. And maybe on the commercial side, they do. On the residential side, they struggle.
I can tell you this, man. I would agree 100%. Like when we sold down in Miami, we sold a lot of commercial business. The residential was a nightmare for us to sell down in Miami. Like we couldn't figure it out for the life of us, man. It was we couldn't figure it out. Like
we just reversed engineer it.
Yeah, it's super tough, man. It was super tough.
What we do, here's what we do. Everybody's trying to sell a contract. 65% or 80% of the people don't want to sign a contract for residential.
Yep.
The culture, the mentality, a spray. My mother, 50-year-old, 65% Hispanic. Here's what we do. We sell it without a contract at max price, double what everybody else is, because they can get out of it. And then I just convert them over to a monthly or bi-monthly afterwards.
Makes perfect sense.
That's it.
I always wonder, man, because I remember back there in 08, 08 till 12, when I had my business, like I'd go down to Miami and I would go out there in the field and try to sell residential. And I really struggled. And the interesting thing was, it was the only market we struggled in residentially. Other markets was no big deal. It was fine. Commercial was fine. Commercial was fine. Actually, Miami had a great commercial business, but we sold the high-end commercial stuff, commercial real estate, healthcare, stuff that was the higher-end stuff. And that was pretty good for us. But man, I struggled, man. And it was a really, really tough market to sell residential business in.
It's extremely tough, and it's extremely competitive. Yeah. Where you have 240 companies, if I'm not mistaken. You got 1,700 techs running around in Miami now.
It's crazy.
It's a crazy market, and you throw in the demographics and the psychographics, and unless you understand that, you come with this big corporate mentality of what you're doing in the rest of the country. And Miami is a third world nation compared to the rest of America. I mean, it really is. That's just a reality. It is what it is. You got people from all over, but you don't have a melting pot like New York or Chicago, where you have Italians, and then you have, the people from all over the world. It's mainly Central South America. Yeah. And then you have the Black community, and then you have, a very small Asian community, and all the people that are here that are from Russia or that are mainly just investors. Yep. Buying up properties and buying up things. They're not actually living here. They're just vacationing here. Yeah. So the demographics and the psychographics are completely different, because I lived in the Midwest. I sold in Chicago. I sold in New York. I used to do business in the Bronx and Brooklyn. I understand those cultures. And, so when I talk, people are like, man, you're like really loud and really obnoxious. And it's like, I fit into those environments, where I don't do very well with a Southern guy. It's just too quiet for me, So that's the main thing. But let's talk about, because I know you got a bunch of courses. You talk about hiring and business growth. When do you think, for the guy who wants to grow, at what number seems to be, from what you're looking at, kind of the magic number? I have a number in my head. I won't share it with you. Yeah. But tell me, like, when you want to grow, what's that magic number when you have to already think about hiring and growing? Yeah.
So that's the big question you get asked all the time, right? And I think, and I get asked that question all the time, and I give a kind of gray answer to that. And I think I know what your answer is. I think I've heard you talk about it before, but I won't. But here's the thing: is there's a couple things that balance into it. I think number one is that if you said, "Hey, what's the perfect number?" Cool, I can give you a perfect number. But the reality is that people have to be able to balance their business, their expense, their family, their debt structure, whatever it may be, right? And their pace. And so I think if I said, what's the perfect number? I really like it. I really like an operator who gets to around that, like, let's call it $15,000 before they hire a technician, $15,000 a month of consistent recurring business. And I say that now that for some people, that seems like a pretty far down the road, because what I get asked all the time is, well, I do $15,000 a month in business, but they really have like 10 or 12,000 of recurring business. And then they do a bunch of one-off services. And so what I always say is like, hey, if you're down the middle, and I'm giving a down the middle answer, but if you're $15,000 in recurring business, plus or minus a little bit, and then you get a couple extra $1,000 a month in regular service, you're probably ready to hire that technician, right? Now, the big question though that I get asked is that, well, who do I hire first? An office person, a technician? Like, that's in every business, I think, is really different there, right? Because if I was like, I know a brilliant operator here in Florida who grew his business $250,000 of revenue before he hired his first technician. Today, he's got 6 or 7 technicians. They run these really tough. They run a really aggressive service-driven business. Now, I also know companies who I've worked with who, they hit 5,000 in monthly revenue and they hire their first technician because owner's skill set is really on the sales side, right? Right. So that owner says, hey, look, I need to get out and be free and go sell business, and I need someone to take care of the service. And so, but I think if like someone said, hey, I wanted to be an operator and I'm going to stay running a route and I'm just going to get a second guy, we're going to go build his route. My methodology, I'd probably say, is get to 15,000, give that guy $10,000, focus on growing his business. You keep 5,000, split your week in half, start growing up both the routes together. It's probably like a simple methodology. What are your thoughts, man? I don't know.
To me, it's going to depend on the market, because obviously Miami is like, for here, it's a really expensive city to live in.
It is. Yeah.
So what I can do with 15 grand a month here is not the same that a guy in the middle of, in a smaller market who, it can do. So if I somewhere between that, I started at 150,000, but because I'm confident in my sales ability to go out and hustle it and then not worry about what I have to cover for him. Here's the thing is that you can't eat your seed. I mean, that's just, so a lot of guys want to live this life and they start buying the $300,000 house because they were making 200,000, they were making 150,000 a year.
Great point.
And now they're like, I want to hire, but I got a $4,000 a month, $3,000 a month mortgage. I said, you can't just constantly increase your lifestyle if you have plans to increase your business, because you got to pump it a lot into it. Yeah. So I decided I'll just keep a lower lifestyle, make X amount, and stay on that so I can continue to pump everything into it, so I can continue to grow. And then eventually get to my goal of where I want. So to me, it's I was at like about 12,000 a month, and it quickly was like, I'm free now. I've got 2 technicians, and I just hired a sales guy to get off that phone deal.
Well,
and now,
I think the big question too is like, the big thing to think about is like, so like to your point is you live frugally, knowing that you're going to invest in your business, right? Yeah. And I think that on the other side is that someone could be doing a lot more money and not live frugally, right? And at the end of the day, like,
because of cost,
exactly. So I mean, if you choose not to go out and spend your money, dude, your business, your $12,000 a month business or $13,000 a month business is actually a better company than a $12,000 or $20,000 a month business, because you're a more profitable company, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you live, let's say, if you just go out into the middle of nowhere in Florida, I mean, you can buy properties for 100 to 200,000. Yeah, you can't buy an apartment in Miami. A 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment is 200 grand.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you can't, a rent is exorbitantly high, even if you're renting. Yeah. So a guy making 50 grand in the Midwest can have the house, he's good. And so if he's doing, 12,000 a month and he's banking 50 grand for himself, he can pump in easily 30 grand into a tech, 36 grand, and have a great tech.
Yeah, one thing, and I think this is just a good piece of advice for anyone, and along that path, like one of the things that I always challenge the companies that I work with, but I challenge any business owner to do this, and I think people kind of fall short here, is I think that business owners should get themselves into cadences where they should be able to let's say, for example, I think that a business owner, even if you're a one-man operation, is that you have to commit time to understanding your business deeper. It's because a lot of what happens is people have let's just call it a checkbook business, right? Whatever comes in goes out. Whatever you have in your account is your business, and that's okay. Right. You're allowed to do that, and that's totally fine. But I always challenge companies as they start to get into this growth, to get to that 12,000, 15,000, whatever that number is to go, okay, now's when you start putting true business cadences in. So you need to go meet with your accountant for 30 minutes once a month, right? You need to go, in most companies that size shouldn't really be spending a lot of money like with marketing agencies, but if they are, you should be meeting with your marketing company once a month and going through every single bit of detail, right? But those accountants can really help you because they can go, hey, Seth, you made a bad decision. You decided to go, buy 3 cars and hire 2 technicians, but you really shouldn't have done any of that. They really think it gives them that chance to sit down with somebody who can actually really advise them. Now, I say on the other side is that I don't think an accountant should ever run your business because accountants' jobs are to not make you spend money. I believe you should also spend money too. So, but I think it's also really important for companies to go sit down with that accountant, make those decisions, really plan it out and build that strategy too versus guessing.
Especially if you don't understand basic accounting, which most people don't. It's very boggling for them. But you should know where your numbers are. I mean, at the beginning when you're starting out, you're on zero-based budgeting. Yeah. You have no idea. Basically, what is zero-based budget is we don't have no idea what this is going to cost, and we have no idea what we're going to spend or what we're going to make. We're making this crap up as we go. Which is kind of which is mostly like most pitch decks. And when you're starting a startup, we're going to make 100 million, and it's like, where are you getting these projections? We just pull them out of our butt. We have no clue. But once you run your year, you kind of know where. And most people don't know what their COG is. They have no idea what their cost of good on hard parts. They have no idea what their cost of goods are on chemical. They have no idea what their real payroll costs are. They don't know what these, because they don't do any accounting. They just basically run a checkbook business. Right. If there's money in the account, we pay it as long as we know we can get this out. But having QuickBooks or something like that to where you're year after year, you're measuring and you're measuring your growth. And I've gotten into, there's a couple of concepts. We can throw this around because this is kind of fun about growth. There's some guy that says, I want to do 30% growth with a 10% profit. And I want to do a 20 with a 20. And
I love the topic.
Yeah. So you've seen all of these. Talk to me about that, and explain to the audience what the hell are we talking about? Because most people have no idea.
So that's an interesting topic. You brought that up, and I've actually given some talks on this subject outside of pest control. And so there's a really interesting rule in the software world when you build recurring revenue software companies, and they call it the 40% rule. And you can go look it up. It's really documented. And it's pest control almost aligns really closely to this.
Okay.
And it's really interesting. So it says, hey, if you generate a 40% profit, right, then you have no money to grow, right? And pest control is kind of like that. If you generate a 40%, in pest control, it may not be all the way to 40%, but if you generate a 40% profit, then your growth rates are going to be very slow.
And let me interrupt you on that. Are we talking 40% gross profit off the truck, or because there's no way you're going to generate a 40% profit margin at the end of the year?
I think about net operating income. So let's call it net operating income. So it's essentially and you're not going to generate it in pest control. So the top companies that I work with, they're around that 31% profit is what they end up generating when they're established businesses, which is really, really good, right? Our operations were about 27% of actual EBITDA, which is incredible. And now there's a lot of reasons why those efficiencies took place. But as an individual operator, I think you can generate that kind of profit. People would challenge me, but I do believe you can do it. And I know the methodology exists. Now, if you go look at the accounting companies in this space, they would argue with me when they do their big research and all that stuff.
Right.
That's okay. But I believe you can do it with some efficiencies and different things. But that said, let's call it gross profit, just to call it gross profit. Let's call it 40% gross profit on the truck. Let's just use that number.
So this is when you got a guy on a truck.
Yep.
We're talking about chemical, fleet, costs, raw costs. This is not including marketing costs or administrative costs. This is just what it costs to run that service route for that vehicle. Okay. Is that what we're talking about?
Sure, we can use the same math, and we can use 40% there. I think you can generate that type of. I think you can generate that kind of upside, though. I know we're saying no. I think you can generate that type of an upside.
We're producing 50 to 55%.
Right, that's my point. I thought you meant. I took it the wrong way. I thought you meant that you couldn't do it. Yeah, you.
No.
Yeah. So let's just call the number 40%, just use the 40% rule that we had talked about. And I agree, it's way more than 40%. That's why I didn't want to say, hey, Franklin, no, it's way over 40%. I'm talking about bottom line EBITDA is what I'm talking about. It's at that 27 to 31%. That's the type of numbers that we like to look at.
Okay.
But if we talk about growth, and let's just use 40%. And the 40% rule says that if you take 10% of your marketing, right, you can grow faster. If you take 20% of your marketing, you can grow even faster. If you spend 40% of your marketing, you're going to have no profit, but you're going to grow incredibly fast. And then what happens is as you grow incredibly fast, you start to pull away from your marketing expense, which then creates deep, deep value in your company, because now you're looking at let's call it a $200,000 or $300,000 company that instead of a $50,000 company. Does that make sense? Did I explain that right?
Yeah. Just so I'm clear and the audience is clear.
Yep.
A lot of people would think what you're talking about is just totally insane.
Oh, no way. It's 100%.
So the companies that grow are the companies that basically are dumping more and more profit, a gross profit from their gross top line into the marketing to grow exponentially quick when there is no bottom line profit. But that's okay, because you're increasing the value of the company. So if I decide I'm an operator and I say I can live with 50 grand for the next 5 years and dump all of my 100% of my gross profit into marketing. That's what we're talking about.
100%. So I would say it's a balance. So it's marketing, and then there's that human component about growing your people too, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So 100%. So yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how if people want to scale these companies, that's 100% what they should do. And I've got some great examples of companies that we work for that are going through that process now, who are just growing at outrageous rates.
Because this is what everybody, 99% of the techs that are listening to me who are techs, who are tech minded, will say these guys are insane. This is how companies grow. This is how you see a guy who started out 3 years ago and said, I'm going to do this, and all of a sudden decides to do it, and then he's got 10 trucks, 15 trucks. He's a $3, $4, $5 million company in the next 2 to 3 years.
100%. Now there's a lot to it, right? Like you've got to have a process. You've got to. It's not just like. Look, I wish it was that easy. Like
but in the macro of things, the concept is you have to dump a lot more into marketing than you currently think, because I think it's 2-3%. And referrals and this and that. It says you got to put some serious cash into that marketing.
So now that all the marketing guys hated me from what I was saying earlier, now all the marketing guys are going to love me. So here we go. I think companies, as they go through growth, should be spending 10% minimum on marketing. Now I think let me balance that. Is I think that they should do that once they get to that, let's call it $200,000, $250,000 number, because there's a big balance of profitability up into that point. And, and people will disagree with me there, but I'll tell you is that I 100% think companies should be able to grow themselves organically through the first phase, or through, let's call it referral, through actual sales efforts. And then when they get to that 200 to 250,000, then you go in, and
which is where we did, and where we're at is where now we're looking at exponentially just pumping into this year and the next 2 years, that 10% of into marketing. It's just we haven't decided which media we want to go into and put it, or which medias we want to devise that. But yes, that is because we got synergy now. We've got more gross profit that we didn't have when I was a one-man show. And then we have all the overhead that is being absorbed. Literally 50% of the overhead is absorbed by one route. Where if I have 2 routes or 3 routes producing at 50-55% gross profit, and we can manage the overhead of how much administrative people we need, depending on your skill set.
Like I'll give you an example, and this is so that we have that company running here, and he's probably listening in on the things, but we've got that company that we run here in Tampa. It was kind of our little test project where we just run these methodologies through this company. It's all the company's money and whatever it is, just to test some of these methodologies we use. And so with this scenario, that we chose to dump all the profit into marketing. Right now, understand we're in a little different place. We know the game. We've got the resources, and we have a team that can support all this. But we said, look, we're going to take, and it's not the exact number, but say we make 40% profit. We're dumping 30% profit directly into marketing right now, right? And now we're making very strategic decisions. We are doing a lot of training and a lot of other things. And that company has doubled. So 0 to 90 days, it did 120,000 in sales. And then 90 to 180 days, it did 315,000. And then 120 days to now we're at 180 days. We're at 337.
And that's what takes most guys several years.
Oh, for sure. But this was, again, an incredibly regimented system that we were running here. And it was just to test this stuff. And honestly, and it's the new age, man. It's the new age. So I think that if I was an operator and I had my second tech or my third tech, I would do exactly what we're talking about here, make that measure and say, how much can I actually invest? Be sure that marketing dollars is going into the right avenue, to your point, understand that avenue like we talked about at the beginning. And then the other part is that I would also invest in my people. Now, and that means that you get them.
Let's get into that.
Yeah, you get them technical training, or you do like the stuff that we're doing with Pest Daily, where you get them into these tools that actually really start sharpening their skill set, so that they can actually like accelerate. So you're accelerating all as a company versus just as a marketing firm or whatever the case may be.
And I think we're going to go now into our second, probably most difficult. We've covered like sales, marketing, which those are hard things for people to grasp. But the next one is people hiring. I don't want to. I'm afraid because I worked for every company I worked for. They fired 50% of the people. I don't want to be in that business. I don't want to be. And what I realized is that the companies that grow you have to be like, we're not in the technical business anymore. That stuff is great when you're learning and you're growing, but you got to understand that you're a marketing company that basically is in the HR renting business. You're renting people. You're renting out people to clients to solve their problems. This is so going to that mentality that it's grueling for a lot of people in their heart to look at it so cold and calculating. I mean, what makes me great is that I'm warm and, I'm loud and I'm not, but people understand that I'm warm and I'm loving and I'm kind to them. And I treat my people. I don't expect from my people what I expect from me. I'm driven. I worked 80 hours. I don't expect that. I expect them to come in, be trained, do their job, and go home to their families and enjoy what it is they're doing. On an executive level, it's different, but on the down level, I don't have those expectations. And I think that it's the mindset of the expectation of what your expectations are always out of context with the reality because you've never been there and you've never done it. You just hear about everybody talking about it on Facebook and everybody pontificating on something they've never done. But until you've had to hire 9 to 12 and fire 9 to 12 to 13 people, you don't know what the crap you're talking about. Guaranteed.
Okay. Hey, are you sure you want to open the subject up, man?
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it. I mean, I want to rock this.
So I've hired hundreds of people in my life, hundreds. And I've had managers hire people and their managers hire people and VPs hire people and different things. And here's the thing. And this is actually, I've got some deep expertise here. Not that I'm right or wrong. I just got some expertise because I've been through the ringer with this.
Right.
And when you boil it all the way down, is my core belief, and people are going to, and this in pest control as a whole, people tend to disagree with this, but I would challenge this disagreement, is that you have to, I follow the concept that Richard Branson put out there, and I've always followed the concept that you need to teach your people, you need to train your people so well that if they decide to leave, they can, and that they can go on and run a successful company. But then on the other side is that you want to train them so well that they never decide to leave you, right? And I've lived by that mindset for a long time. And you know what? I've had people go out there and open their own companies. And you know what? Those guys are running successful companies today, and I'm incredibly proud of them. As a matter of fact, I'm so proud of them that if I've done my job as a leader, and I'll dump into the fundamentals of this. If I've done my job as a leader, is that, dude, not only do I want them to go do it, but I want to be their number one investor when they go do it, right? Because I want to be the guy. Like, I want to support them and help them go, because I don't look at it as taking my business. I look at it as creating a future for somebody else. Now, I'll rewind that. The majority of people don't want to do that, right? The majority of people want to come to work. They want to live. They want to go home to their families. And that's the bigger part of the population. And a lot of times I hear from pest control operators is they're like, well, I don't want to teach them what we do, or I don't want to teach them exactly how we do it because they're going to go do their own thing. Okay, cool. If they really are driven and passionate, cool, they should go do it. As a matter of fact, we had a scenario where one of the guys in our old company back years ago said, hey, I'm going to go start my lawn operation. And my partner was like, screw him. And I was like, look, let him go. Like, maybe you invested it. Decided not to invest in it. You know what happened? He wasn't successful. And you know what he did? He came back and he had his home and went on to become a great team member for us. Okay. Yep. And so let's kind of like go. Sorry, I got on my soapbox about something.
No, that's okay. That's cool.
So I think like when you think about people, is to your point, you're renting somebody out to service a customer. I like that concept a lot. But what you're really doing is you're renting out you're renting out someone's business, right? So if you're a technician, you have your business, you have your own business. Now your business is potentially a 9-to-5 business, and your business doesn't require you to come to work afterwards. But your business during the day is being sure you hit your route correctly, being sure you take care of your customer, be sure you upsell if that's part of your company, right? Right. And then from the technician, if you have a service manager, well, the services manager has his own business too. His own business is whatever metrics he has to follow, whatever his day-to-day looks like. And then his business is also his employees, which is his technicians, right? A technician just doesn't have employees. Then you go to the business owner. Well, your business owner, your obligation is to run your business. Well, your business has your service managers and your technicians and your office people and whatever the case may be. And so I'm a big believer in that. As a leader, in order to reduce the turn and the churn of your technicians, so you don't have to hire 15 then fire 15. Maybe you have to hire 15, you only got to fire 12, so you get three that are good. Is that I'm a big believer is that you empower people to understand that they run their own business and they should own their own business, whatever piece of your company that actually is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the whole concept of management and stewardship.
Yeah, servant leadership, right?
Servant leader. People don't understand that, or employees haven't been taught.
Yep.
By a lot of companies that they work for, because a lot of the times, we're getting kids now at 24, 25 who've never had a job.
Yeah.
And we're inheriting that. And people are like, well, kids today. I look at it and I say, I'm throwing it back at the parents and going, you raised them. Yeah. You're complaining about the same kids today when you were the generation that raised them. So we got a lot of issues, but I find that there's a lot of good kids who are hustlers, who enjoy the grind, who want to be successful, and they want leadership and mentorship. The problem is you want to micromanage, and they can't. Right. You suffocate the employees. Then let's go back to the first step about hiring, because most people have never done it. Yeah. And I know you've got a couple of videos on hiring.
We built a course on it. Yeah.
Build a course. Talk to me about that course and talk to me about that process.
So that course, so now there's a lot of methodologies, not that ours is right or wrong. Again, it comes down to following a methodology. I just built a course that talked about how to hire a technician, right? It also talks about how to hire salespeople, but it really teaches the other side as well, which is, as a technician, how do you interview for the job? It teaches all of that. Right. And I think what happens is this.
That's brilliant, by the way. To educate the actual technician about how to actually get this job, because nobody's doing it. That's awesome.
We did another fun one, and I'll get back on the subject. We did another fun one, but we did one on goal setting as well. And we talked about how owners to set goals and how different people in the organization can set goals. But one of the other ones we did was kind of like a little bonus I did for fun. Is I did one that was teaching a technician how to get promoted and how to set their goals to their owners so they could actually get promoted, which is a pretty cool one. But anyway, so as we talk about the process, this was the process. One of the things that, and I've challenged some of the companies we work with this, as well as I challenged myself, because when I started in the pest control business, look, I have a technician position I need to fill. Here's the things that I need, and just go fill it. The first person that hits that criteria, right? But I negated a couple things. I negated, are they a cultural fit? Do they have work ethic? And I'd interview them maybe once, maybe twice, and they'd get in a truck, and then I couldn't figure out why I had that turnover. So I said, okay, let's rewind. Let's rewind. And so this is kind of how that process works. Is I said, okay, step one is that what's the number one thing a technician does, right? Well, the number one thing a technician does isn't pest control. The number one thing a technician does is he communicates with customers. And the number two thing they do is they're logistics people. They know how to manage their day. The third thing they do is pest control, right? Because if you think about it, you do 20 stops a day, right? 20 stops a day, you're only doing 2 or 3 hours of real pest control. The rest you're driving around, the rest you're managing your day, the rest you're taking calls, whatever you're doing, right?
Right.
And so I said, we have to get to that skill set. So that's the first thing. So we have to get to that skill set. So what do you do first? Well, the first thing is that you phone screen them, right? Well, why do you phone screen them? Well, because they're going to be talking to people. And if they can't phone screen well, or they can't have a conversation with you on the phone, well, how are they going to represent your company when they're calling their customer, right? Makes sense, right? Okay, so now they go through that process. They do great on the phone screen. They do really, really well. So then you invite them in to come to an interview. Well, as part of the interview, as an owner, you sit them down and you interview them, right? And I actually gave a bunch of questions you can ask because there's all kinds of questions that relate to whether they're a good fit based on their personality. And those are kind of listed out there. And there's a lot of different ones because you need to be sure this is the right person because that's more important than if they're a good technician for most companies. Now, if you're a highly technical company and you're doing AIB facilities and things like that, they might need some different skill set. But residential companies, you need this, right? Because you're going to teach them pest control anyway in your way. So you sit them down in an interview and you ask them a lot of personality type questions. You find out if they're human, right? You get to know them as a human standpoint. Now, a lot of companies go through step 1, step 2. So step 3, which is the most interesting, is you said, okay, so if I'm interviewing as a technician and I'm going to get a job, is that I'm due to get on a phone screen. I can talk. I did great in front of an owner. Well, here's the thing. Now we need to know what they really like. So what do? We stick them in a truck with one of our technicians for the day, right? So we let them go out in the truck, right? And now not only do we let them go out in the truck, we pay them to go out for that entire day because their time is equally valuable and they're committing time to the interview process. And we should, as an owner, be able to commit that much time to be sure we get the right person.
Right.
So they go through the interview. Now, here's the thing. What do you find out when you're with somebody for 8 hours in a car?
Their bad habits.
Everything, man. Everything. Right?
Yeah.
Dude, because you're getting comfortable with them. Now, and if you're in a one-man operation, take them out as the owner, right? And man, cut it up with them. Have fun. Get to know them because what happens? Next thing you know, they're talking about all the things they do on the weekend. They're talking about who they really are, right? Now, you might also find that home run, right? Or like, let's say, for example, your culture is a culture of, hey, you guys go out every Friday and you guys go get beers, right? Well, you need to be sure that guy is going to be the guy that wants to be part of that culture, right? Or if you're a culture that's not that and you're a culture that doesn't party, you need to be sure you got the right guy, right? So now you spend 8 hours with the guy. Now you know everything about him, right?
Right.
So then you bring him back, and then as the final interview, you have to go through the background check, but then you validate everything they told you, and you make them an offer because now you've committed, let's call it 2.5 or 3 hours to this person who might be with you the next 10 years of their life, right? And if you nail this piece, now you create longevity with this person. And the neat thing is that you have all these check boxes along the way to determine if it's the right person or not. And at any point, that you've heard the adage that you always hire slow, fire fast. That's a big adage, right? You hire slow, you fire fast. What happens in the industry is people hire fast and then they fire way too slow, right?
Yeah.
So in that hiring process, the one at least the version that we designed, and there's lots of different versions, is that now if you see that red flag anywhere as part of that process, the interview it's time to end it and you move on to the next guy, right? I don't know if you like that process or not, but
no, it's probably oversimplified because it's in the reality it's probably a little bit more. You still got to get the calls. You still got to qualify the right guy. And for the average guy who is on the road by himself, taking the sales call, taking this, it's a big mental overload. Oh, I got to take another 100 calls.
Yeah.
Because you once you put an ad out or you're looking, I mean, there's lots of methods. You're always prospecting. And in the case, I think you have to become fanatical. I think salespeople can do this more naturally because we're just fanatically about, we're always prospecting for something, whether it's, if it's a customer, then when employee mindset, okay, I'm in an employee mindset, everybody looks like a potential. So I'm at the grocery store and that kid at Publix is just freaking amazing. The way he took care of me at the cash register. This guy would be great if he would love to be outside in pest control, because nobody has ever taken care of me like that when I'm at Publix. Well, so I guess I'm always in that mind frame, and it's about being in a mind frame.
So as part of this, we talked about your recruiting methodology. How do you go about that? But I think if you remember how we opened this conversation, we talked about designing that revenue producing time for the golden hours. Well, you're really committed to your business. Now, people are going to think I'm crazy. Remember, I was in a truck and I did this, right? It's not. I'm not. This is not pie in the sky,
right?
When you're recruiting people, you have to almost have that same level of, to your point, fanatical prospecting, and you have to almost sit there and say, look, for the next hour of my day today, I'm going to recruit, right? I'm going to get back to all these people. I'm also going to have my time scheduled. And then when I'm done recruiting for the day. And I get back to my revenue producing time or my service, right? And so you have that time block function is what separates what does two things. It takes it from an individual operator standpoint. It takes that individual operator and it gets them into a focused time, so they don't have to chase squirrels, right?
Yeah.
And so what it really does, and you could speak to this, I'm sure, is it reduces your anxiety of what should you do next, right? And so if you know that I'm going to wake up on Tuesday morning, I'm not going to take any service calls until 11 o'clock. And between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, I'm going to follow up with my recruiting. And then after 11 o'clock, I'm not going to look at recruiting again until my next recruiting time. Right?
And I think it's learning time management skills in a different way when you're a tech and everything is managed for you. It's almost managed chaos. So what I look at is, okay, I got to learn that. Like right now, I told my techs. And I told people that are my sales reps, listen, I'm going to be in a meeting, doing a podcast for 2 hours. I'm not going to take any calls. And I don't. So, but I've got an answering service taking calls 24/7.
Sure.
I have a sales rep answering those calls. My tech is out in the field. He has all the instructions. They might call me once a day on an issue. They're in the field and they're like, and he knows that when he's with a customer, they call me and that's fine. But for the most part, I'm about, like the biggest thing with me is that I'm a creative.
Yeah.
and I'm always thinking about, like, I use Asana for project management to manage myself because I've got all these projects. So I just dump all these projects on there. Yeah. And then as I start pecking away at them, but my daily routine is on Asana. I got to post a video daily. For Pest Geek, for Nature Pest, I got to do one post. If I don't manage it to that detail because I do have ADD, I fall apart. So I have to highly structure myself to function. Yeah. If not, I'll be all over. I'm thinking about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm like,
It's been, I think to like the original topic that you brought up, it's like, if you're going to grow a business though, this is the hard thing, right? And if a lot of times when somebody comes up and they open their own company as an individual operator, to your point, is that the only thing they really have known is other businesses they might have been in, right? Yeah. And then they went to work for a company and thought they could do it on their own, but they've never been these functions. And no one's ever said, "Hey, here's how you actually do it," right? And so what happens is you get into that cycle of, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? And all of us have been there, right?
Right.
Like for you have a tool, use Asana, great tool, right? For me, I run a different methodology, and I have to. But these are things that take time to learn. And so when people ask this question, this is an interesting methodology for people that are still tuned in, is it, and I challenge my customers with the same methodology, which is from a consulting standpoint, not from the training standpoint, not from the technology, but from a coaching standpoint, is that you have to learn as a business before you grow. And this is that you have to learn how to win day over day first, right? So you learn to win day over day. After you successfully can win day over day,
that's brilliant.
Then you get to week over week. After you learn how to win week over week, you go month over month, then quarter over quarter. By the time you learn how to win month over month, like in a successful way, you're ready to go to the next level, right? But until you can win like that, companies aren't really ready. And that's time management. That's process. That's all these fundamental like things. And so, but then when you get to go quarter over quarter, which many of the companies that I've worked with, these guys are running multi-million dollar companies now, but they started it, 250 or 300,000 or 500,000. And what they did is it takes months, right? It takes months to wrap your hand around the mindset that we spoke about. And after the mindset, then you have to start being able to execute. And even if you get little tiny bits of execution along the way, you start to win. And then those wins become kind of inherent, right? But it's all of it. So it's recruiting, it's sales, it's understanding marketing, taking the time to be educated. But the reality is that I'm on my soapbox again. Sorry. But the reality is,
I'm good.
The reality is that you put the time in is that you get an exponential return. And so if you don't put the time in, then you get a level return, right? And so like why you're so good at, why Pest Keeps has gotten so good and why you can put out 50, 60 pieces of content a day and you do all these things, it's because you've spent the time to understand it and learn it, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with humans. It's the same thing with training people. It's the same thing with finance. It's all of that, right? Because if you put 100 hours in now, it's worth 10,000 hours of your time later, right?
Yeah, it's tuition. It's like learning anything. We have to learn that learning isn't necessarily going to a class.
Yeah.
Learning, I mean, if you want to learn how to do TikTok videos, go on TikTok and just start watching 8 hours a day at TikTok for the next 3 to 4 days. Who's got that kind of time? If you're going to be successful at it, you make the time. So 100%. it may be a 1 hour block every day for the next 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you say, okay, I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to do a 1 hour block a day for the next 3 months so that I can really become an expert at this. And I think it's the same thing. I think that with a coach, and I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine about coaching people. And I said, the reason I don't like doing startup coaching for startups is that they have all these ideas and all the things they're going to do. And they're already convinced they probably haven't smacked into a wall yet. And until they smack into the wall, I'm not going to convince them of otherwise. Yeah. So that's why I don't do the coaching bit. But I think as a coach, what my goal is, okay, look, execute on this. You've got all these great ideas. Pick one and execute and focus on this. You know, I love that Dumas, he says, focus, follow one path unto success.
Yeah.
So that's what I do is I start getting, but you know, I've done this traditionally for 13 years. So now it seems like, you know, Frank doesn't do a darn thing. My goal is not to. My goal is no longer to have my business run me. Yeah. Have me run the business where I am. But until I've hired 12 or 13 people, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. and I don't want to go through that pain of hiring 13 people and firing them. I said, that's the reality. Yeah. It's the truth, man. It's the truth, you know? There's no shortcut in the success. I think it's just executing and failing fast. So that, and people are afraid, well, what if I fail at doing ads? What if I fail at doing YouTube videos? You learned how to fail. I mean, it's like, how did you learn how to ride a bike? Yeah, there's I'll tell you this, man. There's a really great book, and I would suggest anyone who's gotten a kind of an intense win personality should read it, called Relentless by Tim Grover. Have you heard of it before? I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to add it to my list this weekend. Go read it. So inside the book, so he's the trainer of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. It's an intense book. Like most of the companies that I work with, they're all reading it. They're all relentless, crazy people now. But the thing I liked about Relentless, and I think this really, there was a statement made. It said if you're one of the people that has to think about a glass being half full or half empty, you're thinking too much. And I went right. And so hang on a second now. Now understand, I've been running companies since I was really young, and big ones, small ones, all kinds of stuff. And this was about, I've read the book 5 or 6 times now because I love it. And I never caught that until like this last time. And I read it, so I kind of got in a funk. And here's what the next statement was though. You're thinking too much. If you like, if it's half full and you like it, fill it up. If it's half full and you don't like it, dump it out and start over. Right. Yeah. It's a really powerful statement to your point. Really easy stuff. Yeah. Yeah. If you go spend money on Facebook ads and it fails, you know what? It didn't fail because you sucked at it or your company sucked at it. It sucked because you didn't understand it. Right. Or something was, and so dump it out, do it again. Right. Yeah. Or like if you work on sales process or you work on whatever, you know, if you're not happy, do it again. If you get happy, fill it up. Right. You know, so yeah, and it has to do with a lot of the myths. Everything, man. Like I got guys that still today telling me I'm going to start up my business, and how do you plan to market it? And I get deer in the headlights. Yeah, because I mean they're buying equipment and they're setting up the warehouse, and they don't have one customer. But man, they've tested every single CRM. They've done every single thing, all the easy stuff, right? But now you got to go get customers. Yeah. And so they're buying equipment and they're doing all this. And I'm like, dude, well, how do you plan? Well, how much money have you set aside for marketing? And all the budget is set aside for buying stuff. And then here's one that really gets me. I'm gonna hand out business cards. And I look, how many cards do you plan to hand out? Well, I'm making 1,000. I said, dude, when you're looking at understanding return on investment, that's providing that you actually have good copy on that card that sells, that you have good graphics and you have a strong offer. If you're putting a business card with your name on it, you're not going to sell a damn thing. You better have beautiful blue eyes, be super, look like, like Luke Lewis. I don't know if you know, down in West Palm Beach. I mean, he looks like Bradley Cooper. I mean, this guy is like, he shows up on somebody's property, like the women are like, yes, I'll sign right here. I mean, because he's really freaking good looking. Me, I have to work my butt off at it.
That's hysterical, man. So a lot of things you got going for you that some people are like, hey, I have a face for radio, but I don't care. I'll go on videos. But man, I like to stay in my dark little room where everyone kind of leaves me alone and I get to play with
So I think all this stuff is like, I think this is super great. I think it's super helpful.
Man.
I've been getting the Pest Daily emails.
Good.
It's pestdaily.com.
Yeah. So pestdaily.com. It's pestdaily.com. We've got a pretty good social following already, and people can go check it out. And I would say the one quick takeaway I want people to know from it is I've gotten feedback, and I think somebody posted here about it being just for owners. Pest Daily is a growing tool, and so it's got a lot of stuff embedded inside its courses for technicians, salespeople, owners, a lot of stuff for HR, for accounting, all that's there. And every week we have either new contributors or new courses being published, and that's our commitment. So I want people to know that. So I would say there's about 125 lessons. There's going to be about 300 and change by the end of the year. And one of the other cool things is, whether someone's a member or not of the system, is inside Pest Daily, there's something called Request a Course. And our commitment is, as long as it's a business-related course and someone requests it, we will build it. So that's our commitment. Whether we have the expertise or not, if we don't have the expertise, we'll find the right contributor. So right now we've got 4 contributors in there. We've got about 10 more lined up. And then there's a lot of me talking about different tactics and things like that. But,
now, is it mostly educational training type, or is it certifiable training like CEUs?
No, so we do not have CEUs in there, and it was actually by intent, because one of the things is, and now we have been approached by some of the companies asking to provide CEU content, and we may enter the technical side next year at some point. My guess is, though, it won't be us. We'll bring in experts that are, somebody who really is passionate about that, the technical side, because there's just great resources out there. I mean, you have a great resource for it. Yeah. It's probably, I think, the best out there. And there's there's people who are very technical. I want to say in our space, which is the business side, and bring experts from outside the pest industry and bring them to people in the industry is really what my vision is here.
I've always, and when I'm doing with the Pest Geek and stuff that I want to do with the academy, not initially, not so much on the CEU part. Although we're looking at that right now to do it, because I believe I can provide a better CEU experience.
I believe it 100%.
Than what the compliance stuff is right now, which is boring. I really want to get into that space. So that's where I'm more focused on is, we're going to be doing CEU stuff that's compliant, but not so much. I think the people need a lot of the stuff that NPMA is not offering, which is what you're doing, what Pest Data is doing. They're more focused on the small individual technician, pest control owner growing than the top 100 is doing, and getting compliance and training for them, for their people. So I think it just fills a really big hole in this space that nobody's doing. That's why I'm excited about it. Thanks, you're looking at that from that perspective.
Yeah, I think, man. Yeah, and I think, and I know we're kind of close on time, but we developed the courses. This is a really important piece. We developed the courses so someone in their service vehicle can actually consume them in between stops. And so everything's between so let's call it 6 to 15 minutes. Every single piece is designed that way, so someone doesn't have to necessarily watch them.
Beautiful.
They can listen to them through their phone, whatever it may be, through the app. They can actually consume little bits of information all the time, and that's how we designed it. So people should take advantage of it. I mean, it's got the offer right now. It's got a 7-day free trial. The product is $59 a month after that. No contract. And then we do have an enterprise version for companies that are 20 plus, or even if you have, let's call it 5+ employees, we do have separate pricing that people can reach out to us on that. And we can track all the training and stuff on the inside for them, which is pretty cool.
Excellent, bro.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the plug, and hopefully.
No, man. Well. I wish you all the success. I mean, I think we need more diversity in this marketplace. Yeah. There's very little of it, and I think organizations like MPMA who don't get it, and I let them know it. They're not getting it. They have their niche market. They're not getting us. And you're creating stuff like that for us, for the people who are in this sphere. Now they're doing webinars this year. 2020, they're doing webinars. But make it on demand, make it easy access, $59 a month. No membership. I don't have to spend $250. And then if I'm a member or not a member, I mean, the marketing part is get it out there into the hands of people.
Yeah, I believe, and this is the first time I've ever said this publicly, but I believe that if people deploy Pest Daily and they actually go through it, regardless of what pace and regardless of what they do, I believe that they can increase like for a smaller operation, that they can add 1 new customer per day just by listening to this thing and actually thinking about it.
Oh, easy.
I believe it's one net new customer per day per person on their team, which creates a ridiculous ROI for them. And I believe it, and I believe that they can go on in the future and do some really cool stuff because of some of the basic learning, not just that I'm doing, but that some of these contributors are doing. I mean, we're doing like today in the studio, we had the guys from EOS here, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, the book Traction. Have you ever read Traction?
Yep.
So we just had implementers from Traction in the studio as we've been doing this podcast, doing Traction for pest control to put into the system.
That's beautiful, bro.
It's
That's
so
sick.
cool for the people that want to own it. You know what I mean? And go through it.
Awesome. No, that you're taking this to the really next level.
I want to see people win, man. Create futures for people.
And I don't think Pest Daily. I don't know, man. I don't think it could be just for the pest control industry because the principles for every service industry. So if you're in glass cleaning, whatever. I mean, it doesn't. It really is the same. What we sell with people. I piss people off all the time when I say this. What we sell is a commodity, guys.
Yeah.
Window cleaning is a commodity. Pest control is a commodity. It's branded marketing and sales that's going to make the difference. But it's all a commodity. Beans are beans. I don't care. I mean, a black bean is a black bean. Whether Goya makes it or Iberia makes it, it's brand. So I think you're going to do just awesome, bro. And
I like Goya best. I probably shouldn't say that out loud.
Yeah. No, I love Goya and I love the product. I buy 2 of their beans, but I like the canned beans, and because I don't have time to cook, for 10 hours, soak beans and cook them. I got to do things quickly around here. So yeah, man. So hey, thanks so much for being on, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's been a blast. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this,
That's awesome, man.
And we're going to have some great success with this. I really appreciate you.
Great, man. Hey, thank you for all you do today too, Franklin. Take care.
All
man.
right, brother. Take care, brother.
Bye.
Bye-bye.